The orphaned cubs. The ship was a grave. It drifted at the edge of a barren moon, its hull split open like the carcass of some hunted beast. Scavenger drones had long since picked away the useful parts, leaving only broken corridors and the stale air of forgotten lives. Inside, among shadows and dust, the cubs clung to survival. They were small by the standards of their kind, fur-matted, ribs sharp beneath thin skin, eyes too old for their years. Hunger had carved them into creatures of instinct. They fought over scraps of moldy rations and chewed on wiring insulation when no food could be found. The stronger cubs ruled with fists and fangs. The weaker learned silence. Kindness was not a concept they knew. Their caretakers had been brutal even before the crash, lashing the young into obedience. When the adults fled or died, the cubs inherited only that same cruelty. They had never been held, never been soothed, never been called by anything resembling a name. And then the humans came. The human exploration ship Eidolon caught the faint distress beacon purely by chance. Its scanners marked it as Valen, a species the galaxy knew as raiders, pirates, monsters in living flesh. Captain Elara Vos was urged to ignore it. Protocol said do not engage. But Elara had never been good at obeying protocol. She had grown up on a colony that knew hunger, too. She had seen what happened when compassion was rationed away, when people convinced themselves that mercy was weakness. And she remembered a voice from her own childhood, someone who had once whispered her name in the middle of war, and given her a reason to keep walking. So she overrode her officers. The Eidolon's shuttle cut across the void and latched onto the broken Valen wreck. The first thing she heard inside was the sound of growling. Not beasts, children, trying to sound fierce through cracked throats. They crouched in the darkness, eyes glowing faintly, waiting for pain. Elara's hand hovered over her sidearm. Her crew shifted uneasily behind her. Everyone expected an attack. But she knelt instead. Slowly, lowering herself to their level, palms empty. Her voice softened, carrying through the ruin. "It's all right," she said. "I'm not here to hurt you." The cubs stared. None of them moved. She reached into her pouch and pulled free a ration pack, tearing it open. The scent of real food filled the stale air. The nearest cub flinched, baring sharp little teeth, but the hunger in its eyes betrayed it. "Go on," Elara whispered. The cub crept forward, trembling. It snatched the ration, retreating quickly to the safety of its siblings. They tore into it, snarling at one another until every bite was gone. When it was finished, they looked back at her, wide-eyed, waiting for punishment. But no blow came. Elara leaned closer, studying their faces. She realized then, none of them had markings, tags, or even call signs. They were blank, nameless little things. She remembered the voice that had once saved her, and a thought rose in her chest. "Do you have names?" she asked softly. The cubs blinked. They didn't understand. Elara's throat tightened. She reached toward the smallest of them, careful and slow. It shivered but did not pull away. She touched its tangled fur gently, the first kind hand it had ever known. "Then I will give you one," she whispered. The cub's breath caught. "Sora," she said. "That is your name." The others shifted, uncertain, watching. Elara pointed to each in turn. "And you, Ashen. You, Loom. You, Tavi." One by one, she gave them names, like gifts pressed into their fragile hands. With each name, the cubs made small, broken sounds in their throats. They didn't know why water filled their eyes or why their chests ached. They were weeping. Elara's crew muttered behind her, uneasy. Some looked horrified. "Captain, these things are Valen. They'll grow into killers. We should leave them." But Elara only shook her head. "They're children," she said firmly. "And children deserve a chance." The cubs pressed closer to her, clinging to the strange, soft sounds she had given them. They whispered the names back to themselves in broken syllables, as if afraid they might forget. That night, when the Eidolon pulled free of the wreck, the cubs curled against one another in the shuttle bay. For the first time in their short, brutal lives, they slept without fear. And in the silence, the ship carried with it something new, something fragile and precious. The beginning of kindness. The first names. The cubs did not trust her. They ate the food she gave, yes, but only in frantic gulps, always with one eye watching her hand. They expected a blow. They expected a trap. When nothing came, suspicion deepened rather than faded. Days passed aboard the Eidolon. The cubs huddled in a corner of the medical bay, feral and silent. The human crew avoided them whenever possible. To most, they were not children but weapons waiting to grow teeth. Captain Elara Vos saw something different. She saw the way their ears twitched when footsteps echoed, the way they flinched at raised voices, the way hunger gnawed at them but fear held them back from taking more than a single meal. They were learning not just survival, but shame. She could not abide it. One evening, after the corridors had quieted and the crew's watchful eyes turned elsewhere, Elara returned to the cubs with a tray. Fresh fruit, sliced bread, warm broth. The youngest sniffed the air, whimpering softly. "Eat," Elara encouraged, placing the tray on the floor. The cubs looked at one another, waiting for one to be punished. None moved. Elara sighed. She picked up a slice of bread and bit into it herself. "See, it's safe." Slowly, one cub crept forward. Then another. Soon they were eating again, less frantically this time, sneaking glances at her as if trying to puzzle out why the blows never came. When they had eaten their fill, Elara lowered herself to the floor and sat cross-legged among them. They shrank back, confused. "Do you know what a name is?" she asked. Blank stares. She smiled gently. "A name means you are someone. It means when I speak, I can call you. I can know you. Without a name, you are lost. With one, you are found." One cub tilted its head, eyes narrowing. The others huddled tighter, whispering low growls. Elara pointed to the smallest, the one she had called Sora back on the wreck. "This one already has a name. Sora." The cub startled, ears flattening. "That's you," Elara said softly. "Sora." The name was repeated in a broken murmur from the cub's throat. Its eyes filled with tears again, though it did not understand why. She touched the next gently. "Ashen." The cub made a sound, half whimper, half question. "You," she said to another, brushing its paw. "Loom." Then the last, who had been glaring fiercely since the moment she entered. She did not flinch under its defiance. "And you, Tavi." Each cub repeated its name in clumsy syllables, as if shaping a foreign language. Their voices cracked, high-pitched, uneven. But the sound filled the bay, fragile and alive. Elara's throat tightened. She remembered her own childhood, the night her colony burned and soldiers swept through the streets. She had been just another refugee among thousands. Someone, an old teacher, long dead, had found her, crouched low, and whispered her name. Elara. In that moment, she had ceased being a number and become a person again. Now she was doing the same. Behind her, the bay doors hissed open. Lieutenant Gray entered, arms crossed, expression hard. "Captain, we need to talk." Elara rose carefully, stepping away from the cubs. "Outside." In the corridor, Gray's voice dropped to a hiss. "This is madness. These are Valen. Their people burned colonies. Killed children." "Their children too," Elara countered. "They'll grow into monsters. Not if we show them another way." Gray shook his head. "You're blinded by sentiment. You think giving them cute names will erase what they are? Mercy to predators is death to prey." Elara's jaw tightened. "Then let them be something more than predators. Isn't that what humanity has always done? Seen more than what others see." Gray left with a curse, muttering about reporting to command. Inside the bay, the cubs watched her anxiously, ears pricked. Elara smiled, forcing steadiness into her voice. "It's all right. You are safe." They repeated their names again, one by one, whispering them like charms against the dark. That night, Elara checked on them before turning in. The cubs had curled together in sleep, but instead of silence there was a soft sound. Sora mumbling its name in a dream, Loom echoing faintly, Ashen murmuring, Tavi growling as if daring the void to take what was his. Elara stood at the threshold, heart aching. The galaxy might see monsters, but she saw children, fragile and trembling, clinging to the first threads of identity they had ever known. The Eidolon drifted through the stars, carrying with it 4 names, whispered like prayers in the dark. And with those names, the first fragile proof that kindness could grow where it had never been planted before. The world that hates them. The Eidolon docked at Meridian Station with the usual groan of hydraulics and the hiss of pressurized airlocks. The crew had been running lean on supplies for weeks. They needed fuel, spare parts, fresh water. But it was not the Eidolon that drew stares when the airlock opened. It was the Cubs. For small figures padded down the ramp beside Captain Elara Vos, ears twitching, eyes wide at the flood of light and noise. The station's corridors teemed with travelers, merchants, soldiers, dockhands. Conversations faltered as gazes fell on the children. Whispers rose like a tide. Valen. Raiders spawn. Monsters. The Cubs flinched, pressing closer to Elara. Their claws clicked nervously on the decking. For weeks aboard the Eidolon, they had been safe. Now the galaxy itself seemed to turn against them. Elara held her head high, though her hand never strayed far from her sidearm. "Eyes forward," she murmured to the Cubs. "You're with me." The marketplace was worse. Alien merchants recoiled, pulling wares off tables, shielding their children. A vendor spat at Elara's boots. They should have been purged with the rest of their kind. Elara stopped, her jaw tightening. "They are children. Children of wolves are still wolves." Her crew muttered uneasily behind her. Lieutenant Gray, ever her shadow, leaned in. "Captain, you're putting us all at risk parading them out here. The station won't tolerate this." Elara ignored him. She would not hide them. Not anymore. The Cubs tried to mimic human composure, chins lifted like hers, but fear trembled in every step. They had known hunger and cruelty, but never this, open hatred from strangers. The confrontation came at the far end of the market. A group of dockhands, broad-shouldered and half-drunk, stepped into their path. One sneered. "Look at that! Valen whelps walking free." Another shoved a cub, ashen, hard in the chest. The little one staggered back, lips peeling in a terrified snarl. Instinct screamed for claws and teeth. The dockhands jeered, waiting for violence, for proof of the monsters they claimed these children were. But instead, Ashen froze. His gaze darted to Elara, to the name she had given him. He swallowed, shoulders trembling, and whispered hoarsely, "Ashen." The sound was barely more than a breath. Yet in that moment, it was everything. The marketplace fell silent. The cub had not attacked. He had clung to his name like a lifeline. The others followed, voices quavering, "Sora! Loom! Tavi!" One by one, they claimed themselves aloud, not as beasts, but as individuals. "Children." Elara stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "You hear them? They are not nameless raiders. They are not shadows of their parents. They are themselves. And I will not let you take that from them." The dockhands faltered. One muttered a curse and stalked away, unwilling to be the man who struck down children in front of a gathering crowd. The others followed, muttering under their breath. The cubs clung to Elara, still shaking. She crouched low, brushing their fur in reassurance. "You did well," she whispered. "You held on to your names. No one can take that from you." Later, in her quarters, Elara stared at her reflection in the viewport. Beyond lay the stars, endless and cold. Had she done the right thing? Every voice around her screamed caution. Command would see her actions as reckless. Even her own crew wavered between loyalty and resentment. But then she thought of the cubs' eyes, wet with fear yet burning with the first spark of identity. She thought of their whispered names. She remembered her own, whispered long ago in the dark. And she knew she could not abandon them. When she checked on the cubs that night, they were curled together on their bunks, repeating their names to one another like a litany. Ashen whispered, Sora echoed, Loom hummed softly, Tavi growled protectively. Elara smiled faintly. The galaxy could hate them. But as long as they had names, and as long as she had breath, they would not be forgotten. Kindness had taken root. And roots, given time, could grow into forests. The promise of humanity. The Eidolon never left Meridian quietly. Rumors spread faster than thruster fire. A human captain had taken in Valen cubs, named them, sheltered them. To many, it was a curiosity. To others, an outrage. And to the Valen's enemies, it was a provocation. The attack came 3 days out, at the edge of a nebula. Warning klaxons blared through the ship as a cruiser broke from the dust. An angular, dark vessel bearing the sigil of the Carath Dominion, sworn rivals of the Valen. Their message came through, jagged with contempt. Human vessel, surrender the whelps. They are war spawn, enemies by blood. Hand them over, or be destroyed. In the command deck, the crew looked to Captain Elara Vos. Lieutenant Gray's face was pale, hard. "Captain, they'll kill us all for those cubs." Elara's gaze swept the room. "Then we show them what it means to be human." She muted the channel and turned to the cubs. They had stumbled onto the deck during the alarm, wide-eyed, ears flattened. Sora clutched at her sleeve. We should go. If we stay, you die." "No," Elara said sharply. "Don't you ever believe that your lives are less. You are not sacrifices." Her voice softened. "You are mine." The words struck the cubs still. In their short, brutal lives, no one had ever claimed them, not as kin, not as children. Now they were not burdens. They were hers. The Dominion cruiser fired a warning shot, rattling the Eidolon. Gray cursed. "Captain, our weapons won't scratch their hull. We can't fight them." Elara's eyes narrowed. "We don't need to fight." She reopened the channel. "You call them monsters. But you have never heard them." Before her crew could stop her, she tapped the comms. Her voice carried across the void. "Children, speak your names." The cubs looked at her, frightened. She nodded once. Ashen stepped forward first, trembling, and spoke into the silence. "Ashen." Sora followed, voice cracking. "Sora." Then Loom. "Loom." And Tavi, growling his name with all the defiance in his small body. "Tavi." The sound carried across frequencies, for fragile voices pressed against the cold indifference of space. Names. Not numbers. Not beasts. The Dominion channel went silent. On their bridge, officers stared, listening not to threats but to children. Elara's voice cut through. "These are not weapons. They are not curses. They are children who wept the first time someone spoke to them with kindness. If you destroy us now, you are not executing monsters. You are slaughtering the innocent." Minutes stretched like hours. The Eidolon's crew held their breath. The Dominion cruiser loomed, guns hot. Then, without a word, the enemy ship powered down its weapons. Its engines flared, turning it back into the nebula. The threat passed. Relief flooded the bridge. The crew broke into hushed voices, disbelief and awe mingling. Lieutenant Gray stared at the cubs, his rigid certainty finally cracking. They stopped them," he whispered. Elara knelt, pulling the cubs close. Her voice shook with quiet pride. "You saved us. Not with claws. Not with fear. With your names." Weeks later, the Eidolon sailed on, no longer just a ship but a small home in the vastness of space. The cubs had grown healthier. Their fur gleamed. Their eyes, once empty, now held light. They practiced human words at night, stumbling through stories Elara read aloud. They laughed, a strange, broken sound at first, but laughter nonetheless. In the quiet before sleep, Elara tucked them into bunks lined with blankets. She whispered each name, one by one, like blessings. "Sora. Ashen. Loom. Tavi." The cubs murmured the words back, drowsy and content. Elara lingered at the threshold, heart heavy and full all at once. The galaxy still hated them. War scars ran deep. Prejudice would not vanish in a single moment. But she had given them something no hatred could erase. A beginning. The cubs had never known kindness. They wept when she first whispered their names. But in that weeping, the galaxy learned what it meant to be human.